I had to laugh when Reverend Bonnie tried to corral the energy in the room. So that's new. So this message starts with a journey. And here's the journey. So my friend Peggy Shin is in Mexico. We're all not able, but she is. And so I get this message from Reverend Bonnie about, well, would you sub? And I said, well, sure. And so then she gives me this theme called A World That Works for Everyone. Now, when I first got the topic, so, okay. And then Monday came and I thought about it. I said, a world that works for everyone must be a different world. And so I thought to myself, I said, okay, this is going to take some convincing. I need to be convinced. But I went through a conversion process. Because I have to be honest with you. I said, nah, I haven't seen that world just yet. And in light of world events, not to mention the events in the United States, I said, I haven't seen that world just yet. So then as I was trotting through this, as Spirit was pushing me in this direction and in that direction and holding my eyes open to see what Spirit wanted me to see, Spirit took me the whole way back to my childhood. And I remembered this song that used to come on the radio. And the songs was sung by this group called the Browns. Not these Browns. But a trio that was a country and Western music group, but they were also a minstrel group, sort of like a hippie group. And the song that they used to sing, or they used to play on the radio that this group sang, almost every morning, was "Brighten the Corner Where You Are." The lyrics went, brighten the corner where you are, brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor you may guide across the bar. Brighten the corner where you are. Ernest Holmes also uses that phrase, where you are. In chapter 8, he talks about a healing process. And he says to us that we must begin right where we are. That we don't need to go to India, find a guru for healing. That we don't need to leave New Mexico or go to Albuquerque or go to New York, but to begin and start right where we are. But then he says something that kind of made me step back, and I said, oh, Ernest, I don't know if I can say that. And I said, well, you wrote it, so I'll say it, and I'll make sure that people understand you wrote it. I didn't say it. He says that we live in this place called the atmosphere of our thoughts. First subtitle of chapter 8. We live in this atmosphere of our thoughts. And this is what he says that challenged me. It may not challenge you. He says we are all immersed in the atmosphere of our thinking, which is the direct result of all that we have ever said, thought, or done. You mean I can't blame where I'm at on Doug Bailey? That I have to take responsibility for where I am? Wow, Ernest, that's not a happy message. But it's more than a happy message. It is the truth. That, the young people speak today of being woke. It's a movie called The Matrix. It was about, coming into real consciousness and not being hooked up to the Matrix and just blindly going along with it. Ernest says that to us, that we must move from unconsciousness to consciousness, that we must become aware of our thought life, and not just the thoughts that we're having, but the history of our thought life, because that makes up the atmosphere of our thinking. Atmosphere, put it this way, the mood of your thoughts, the energy of your thoughts. That's the atmosphere of our thoughts. Let's take a weather report. Don't have to answer. What is your atmosphere like this morning? What has your atmosphere been like this past week, this past year? We can make a lot of, dare I say, excuses for having wind and hail and thunder and lightning in the atmosphere of our thinking. But there's an interesting thing about the science of mind philosophy, that it says that what happens on the inside, there's an equivalent effect that happens on the outside. That if it's thundering and lightning and the waves are tossing you back and forth inside of you, that's what's going to show up outside of you. It means that we must take responsibility for the atmosphere of our thinking. That we are our own weather persons, that we are our own meteorologists. And so I looked at that, I said, but Ernest, you teach us that most of this goes on unconsciously, that we're not even aware of it. Well, that's what being unconscious is about. It happens in this thing we might call being on automatic pilot. Case in point, here's one that a lot of people commit. So how are you feeling? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? It's you. I'm asking you how you're feeling. You know how you feel. Or we just go automatically to the negative. Well, my back's hurting today, my knee's out, my foot's not acting right. We go there. And so Ernest reminds us in chapter 8 that it's that atmosphere, it's that weather that we create every day that creates our life, inside and out. And so we must take responsibility for our atmosphere. What's this got to do with a world that works for everyone? Einstein put it this way, that the kind of thinking that created the problem is not the kind of thinking that's going to come up with the solution. Ernest Holmes simply said, change your thinking, change your life. If we want a world that works for everyone, we can't look at the world the way it is and draw some conclusion from the way it is. Because this is what I got to tell you. It wasn't always this way. It changed to this. And just as it changed to this, we can help it change to something else. But I dropped by to tell you, don't let that word world throw you. Because the lyrics say you have to brighten the corner where you are. Let's think about what that really means. First of all, don't start with brightening Las Cruces. That's not what that means. We have to brighten the corner where we are. Where are we at in our thoughts? Our thoughts. We have to deal, first of all, with the corner of our thinking. You can't deal with Las Cruces if you're not going to deal with you. You have to turn yourself into a light. It's not about changing Las Cruces or New Mexico or the United States of America or North America or South America or the world into the bright light. You have to become the bright light. Means we have to change our thinking. And so Ernest gives us 2 points for changing our thinking. He says, first of all, what we have to do is induce thought. We have to be deliberate about taking thought and not just making it a head thing, but our thoughts have to become a heart thing. It means that we have to embody the essence of what we're thinking. Case in point, if you're thinking about, well, I need to be healthy, well, that's not the way to do that. What you have to say to yourself is that I am perfect, whole, and complete. And to do that until you feel, not you think, that you feel perfect, whole, and complete. That you have to embody that. I had one of my old friends tell me, well, you know, I'm not sick and I don't get sick. Great. That person has embodied health, which is another way of embodying prosperity. My question to you this morning is, what have you embodied lately that reinforces you, that builds you up, that edifies you? Or are we just saying, well, you know, we're from the New Thought community and we're positive people? I call that happyology. It doesn't work. It's just up here when you're saying that. But Ernest is saying that we must become what we think. And that we must become, in fact, I saw this and I could not believe that he was saying this. He says that our thinking must be happy thinking. That we must change the weather, the atmosphere of our thoughts in order for our lives to change. That we must bring, as a part of what your mission statement says, joy into our lives. Not just being happy, but joy. Unexplained joy. Just being joyful for no reason at all. Just joyous. Oh, wait a minute, I need a reason. Okay, I'll give you one. You woke up this morning. Celebrate that. Some of you were able to drive here and not have to use crutches to get out of the car. Celebrate that. Some of you went to the closet this morning and said, oh, I don't know what to wear, but there was all these clothes in the closet. Celebrate that. Be joyful for not the grandiose things in our lives, but for those small, everyday blessings that we're not conscious of that we have. But then Ernest teaches us the other thing that we must do, to which many of us don't want to do, is that we have to choose our thoughts. What do you mean, choose our thoughts? You have to choose what you're going to embody. Life is a series of choices. Some good, and sometimes not so good. But even the not so good choices have a blessing, because you learn something from what we call not so good choices. Ernest says to us this morning that you must choose. You must choose what you're going to embody. You must choose to change the atmosphere of your thinking. You have to make a choice. Now, I have a scary thing to tell you. What does that mean, that you have to make a choice? It means you're in charge of you. That you have to take responsibility for you. Now, I'm going to put my psychologist hat on for a minute. Cognitive behavioral therapy is right in line with religious science. There's no interpretation whatsoever. Might be a difference in terminology. And one of the things that we're saying in CBT is that sometimes what people run into when they're unconscious is they're engaged in what we call distorted thinking. That if you're not getting what you want, there's a distortion going on. And you need to get some assistance with helping you with that distortion. That if this thought is in your stomach and it's causing it to churn rather than for you to be joyful, you're experiencing a distortion in your thinking. Now, I'll give you what is called the ABC triangle for that. There's an activating event. It might have been your boss said something real nasty to you. You went home believing that this counted for something. You have this belief about what was said to you. And then there's this thing called the consequence of your belief. You go home because you can't kick your partner, so you kick the dog. But you're mad at the boss. That's distorted thinking, resulting in distorted behavior. And guess what doesn't happen? Whatever your issue is doesn't get resolved through your distorted thinking. You have to back the whole way up and say to yourself, what do I really need to do here? For me, not for the boss, but for me, to keep me feeling whole, to keep me feeling complete. What do I believe about what I'm thinking? Because your belief is going to influence your behavior. So if we're going to look at a world that works for everybody, the first world we have to look at is our own world. And make sure that that world is working for you. I always tell people there are appropriate times to be selfish. That's one of them. Because if your world is working for you, you're going to have time to help someone else help their world work for them. And so We start with us. Now, some might want to leap to Las Cruces, and I have to say to you, no, don't do that. Move from Las Cruces to this center. Make sure that this center, Vision Core, make sure that this center is working for everyone. And then move to Las Cruces by inviting people to something that already works for you, for this community. And keep building it until you realize one day that it is working for Las Cruces, because Las Cruces is showing up here. So we don't need a big campaign. We don't need to talk about a $100,000 advertising budget about how we're going to make the world work. No, we just start right here. Let me give you an example, because, you know, Spirit drags me around and says, see this? You see where it's working? Okay, now go talk about that. There's a mayor in Louisville, Kentucky named Greg Fisher. And he decided that one of the things that was missing in his community was compassion. That he made compassion a part of his policy. That he now has 30,000 jobs and not enough people to fill those jobs, because they're busy training everybody that wants to be trained in their community. He's decided to have the motto, no one left behind. No one left out. No one excluded. So if a mayor can wake up and become conscious, we can too. So it showed me, what Spirit showed me was that it does work. But you have to change your thinking to change your life and the lives of others. Namaste.